Hi everybody, Gayla Wick, Denver Love Coach and Matchmaker here with you again today. And as you might remember, I am doing a little mini series about mistakes that people are making on first dates. Now, of course, we all make mistakes. However, making these particular mistakes on a first date is so avoidable. And I want you to avoid these mistakes because they're easily correctable and it will give you the opportunity to have a second date. And I'm sure many of you realize you don't really get to know someone very well on a first date. There's a lot of things at play. There's, of course, the nerves of the fact that you're meeting a stranger and you don't really know what it's going to be like, and you don't really know that much about them. And especially in my case, as a matchmaker, I am sending people on blind dates. And you can either see that as a fun adventure and an opportunity to get to know someone that you would not ordinarily otherwise have met. And so I want you to not be nervous and freaked out. So of course, there's always going to be a little apprehension, but I want to give you some tools to make sure that you put your best foot forward. So if you didn't see the first video, be sure to go back to gaylawick.com and scroll down on the blog on the main page, and there's a list of my last 4 or 5 blogs there. And so you can actually see the first one in the series and the second one in the series, and this is the third one in the series. So today I want to talk to you about something that has been coming up several times lately. And I have to say the mistakes that I'm talking to you about are normally made by both sexes. Both men and women make these same mistakes. However, I would say that the first mistake I talked to you about a couple of weeks ago, excuse me, is probably more likely to be made by women. However, I have had several instances where men have made this mistake too. And the second mistake I talked to you about, I'm seeing a lot of women making. Now today, I'm going to tell you recently, my experience is that women have complained to me about this one. So what is this one? This one is a man not asking enough questions about her and basically hogging the conversation. Listen, a first date should be a 50-50 conversation, or as much as possible, because you should want to know about him and he should want to know about you. And so instead of just sitting back and answering all of his questions or all of her questions, you should really make an effort to make sure that you're finding out at an equal amount about each other, because that's the point of a first date. So again, I've gotten this feedback a couple of times lately because after these blind dates, they follow up with me. They fill out a form and then I have a phone conversation with them and say, how did this date go? I got your feedback on your date feedback form, but tell me a little bit more. And what I'm hearing is, well, I really tried to be engaging and I tried to ask questions about him, and he seemed to be more interested in telling me all about him and his accomplishments and his interest, and he asked very few questions about me. Listen, that is a classic big no-no on a first date or the first few dates, because when I really talk to you about first dates, I really mean those first few dates, because you're still only at the interest level. You are trying to find out if you're interested in him, and he's trying to find out if he's interested in you. And so it's really hard to get comfortable with someone and figure that out if you spend all of your time just answering questions and talking all about you and what's important to you and what you've been through and blah, 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 and you forget to say, hey, I'd like to know about you. Let me ask you something about you. So remember, keep that in the back of your mind, that you need to be participating in interest. And I think I mentioned this before, but I did write a little document for people to help them out, and I send that to them before their first blind date, and it's my first date tips. And the very last thing that I wrote was a quote from Dale Carnegie. And he said, to be interesting, be interested. And of course, I think there are lots of variations of that taught to salespeople, that someone will think that you're a fabulous salesperson if you ask them all about them. So really what I want you to think about is make sure that you have questions in your mind, and make sure it's not a job interview. It's not a time for you to ask 67 different questions, but pick a few things, start talking about them, find out about what they like, what their interests are, maybe a few things that they want to talk about. I just encourage you to make sure that there's reciprocity. And that's a word that I talk about in my book. It's a really favorite word that I have, that I share with my husband, and that relationships, even that first relationship of a first date, is about reciprocity. And if you really get that concept, and if you embody that, and you make that really part of your relationship, any relationship that you have, but especially a love relationship, you are going to have the building blocks for a sustainable love relationship. So I know you want these first dates to turn into second dates, and I certainly do want that for you. You want those second dates maybe to turn into third and fourth dates, and then that to go down the path toward an actual exclusive relationship, possibly marriage. And so I want you again to know how to avoid the pitfalls or mistakes or first date blunders, whatever you want to call it, because these are avoidable. These are avoidable. And yes, no one's perfect, but these things you can get right. I know you can get them right, and so you can have the opportunity to get a first or second or third or fourth date and have a potential relationship. So until next time, again, it's Gayla Wick, Denver Love Coach and Matchmaker, and I'm wishing for you all of your relationship dreams to come true. I want you to have the love that you want. So see you next week with another relationship mistake.